Welcome back to the Muay Thai Nutrition Podcast. I'm your host, James Nichol. If my voice sounds a little bit off today, please forgive me. I've got COVID, only 3 years late to the party with that one. First time I've tested positive for it. Hope me mentioning it doesn't cause some weird warning label on this podcast. But anyway, if I sound a bit weird, that is why. Today, I'm going to share with you a fight camp case study of one of my clients to give you a little peek behind the scenes. Hopefully, you will take some useful information to apply to your own fight camp planning, or even just take the idea that having a plan for your fight camp is probably a good idea. Firstly, though, I have some exciting news to share. The Fight and Nutrition course that Don Heatrick and I have collaborated on is finally available to the public. It's been a hell of a lot of work, but we didn't want to release it until we were 100% happy with it and 100% confident that it was as good at it as it could possibly be. I'm delighted to say that we're now at that stage. This is the only nutrition system designed specifically for fighters, providing you guys with the step-by-step process to manage all aspects of your nutrition in every single phase of your training and competition. So whether that's year-round nutrition, fight camp, the weight cut over fight week, the refuel between the weigh-in and the fight, and also importantly, a phase which is rarely covered is the post-fight period. So transitioning away from the fight back to your year-round performance or just a regular level of eating. If you want to read more details about it, go to jamesnicholnutrition.com/FNC. I will link it in the show notes as well. You can read about the course content here. You can read about our satisfaction guarantee. And you can also read some testimonials from those who've already started and been through the course. Honestly, the price is ridiculously low for the value that is contained within. We do have plans to raise it at some point in the future, but right now our priority is giving access to as many people as possible to really build the momentum, to make a real impact in how fighters manage their nutrition, and to get the word out far and wide. Anyway, let's jump into the topic of today's podcast, which is a fight camp case study of a boxer I worked with recently. So they started the fight camp at 70.5 kilograms and the weight class was 63.5. Now, if you're listening to the audio version of this podcast, you'll just have to visualize some of the things I'm talking about. If you're listening or watching the video version, I will flash up some images on screen to help add some context to this. So the boxer started the fight camp at 70.5 kilos and the weight class was 63.5 kilos. Their fight and their weigh-in was a same-day weigh-in. So they were going to weigh in on the same day before the fight with about a 3 to 5 hour recovery window. So they're going to weigh in, have about 3 to 5 hours or a really short recovery window before they were fighting. So that meant it was really important to be dialed in with our plan because of that short recovery window. And at the time we started laying out the 5-week plan, we were 8 weeks away from the fight. So let me walk you through our plan at a top level. Working back from the weigh-in, we decided to target a 3% body weight cut in the final week because we knew that he could safely recover from 3% body weight losses in just the 3 to 5 hour window available. Obviously, if he was fighting or weighing in a day before the fight, then we could cut significantly more than that, perhaps 6 to 8% of his body weight. But because it's the same day weigh-in, and not just the same day, but a relatively short window, 3 to 5 hours within that same day category, we wanted to keep it to an acceptably small level of weight cut. So we settled on 3% cut over fight week. So working back from that meant that we needed to set a fight week target weight of 3% above the weight class. So 3% above 63.5 kilograms is 65.4 kilograms. So we knew that he had to enter fight week at about 65.4 kilograms in order to safely lose that last 3% to make the weight. Further working back from that, to get to that fight week weight, he would need to lose 5.1 kilograms over the fight camp to arrive at fight week at a safe weight. So 70.5 kilograms, his starting weight, minus his fight week target weight of 65.4 kilograms, brings us to the number of 5.1 kilograms, so the total weight loss required over the fight camp. Now, dividing that by the number of weeks until we hit fight week, so importantly, not until the fight, because over fight week, we're not trying to lose body fat. We want all the body fat losses to be done by the time we arrive at fight week. So that meant we have 8 weeks until the fight. We're going to divide the total weight loss required of 5.1 kilograms by 7 weeks, because it's 7 weeks until fight week begins, 8 weeks until the fight. So 5.1 kilogram divided by the 7 weeks until fight week equals 0.7 kilograms of weight loss required per week over fight camp. At a body weight of 70 kilograms approximately, 0.7 kilograms is pretty much spot on 1% of his body weight per week. For reference, I like my fighters to lose somewhere between 0.5 up to a maximum of 1% body weight per week. Can you lose faster than that? Yes, but the more beyond that, the faster beyond that you go, the more you start to, not only your training performance suffers, but the more you start to risk things like illness and injury from being in too aggressive a deficit. So I recommend aiming for 0.5 to a maximum of 1% body weight loss per week over fight camp. So that's a little piece of information that you can apply to your own fight camp there. And also what you can do is the steps that I've been walking you through. So setting how much you're going to target to cut over fight week, working out your fight week target weight, working out how much you lose, how much you need to lose to get to that fight week target weight, and then dividing that by the number of weeks until fight week. These are all steps that you can apply to your own fight camp planning. So at a top level, I've walked you through our fight camp plan in terms of the weight loss required. So now I'm going to walk you through the nutrition programming at a very brief top level. I'm just going to walk you through the numbers. I won't specifically walk you through food choices because that's highly individual. However, the principles from the macros and the amounts that we are feeding him or planning for him, you can take those principles and apply them to your own nutrition planning, and then whatever foods within a selection of reasonably healthy foods you decide to fill those macros with is down to individual preference. So let me walk you through his starting macros at a very brief top level. So his calorie budget was 2,003 calories based on data that we'd had from working together. We were reasonably confident that this would lead to the targeted 0.7 kilograms of weight loss per week. Now, within that calorie budget, we split it into the 3 macronutrients: protein, carbohydrates, and fats. We targeted 140 grams of protein per day. That was approximately 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram of his body weight. So you can use the grams per kilogram that I'm talking about here to apply that to your own fight camp planning. So me saying that we gave him 140 grams of protein per day doesn't tell you much, because you might weigh 50 kilograms, you might weigh 100 kilograms. However, using the grams per kilogram values, you can then times your own body weight in kilograms by the number, so 2.2 for protein, for example, to arrive at a number that will be more relevant for your body weight. Anyway, so for protein, 140 grams per day, which is equal to about 2.2 grams per kilogram of his body weight. This is a relatively high protein intake, as it normally is for fighters in a calorie deficit, for a few reasons. 1, recovery from training. 2, satiety. Protein is more filling than carbohydrates and fats. 3, and most importantly, lean mass retention. Now, most combat athletes are relatively lean anyway. This guy was in good shape at the start of fight camp, certainly not out of shape by any stretch of the imagination. So he was already fit, he was already relatively lean. Now, the leaner you are, the greater risk there is of losing your lean mass, your muscle mass, when in a calorie deficit. So in addition to resistance training, lifting weights a few times a week, keeping protein intake high is protective of your muscle mass. So it basically reduces the chance that you're going to lose muscle mass during fight camp. We want as much as possible of the weight loss that occurs over fight camp to be coming from fat mass, and we want to maximally retain your muscle mass or lean mass as much as possible. So 2.2 grams per kilogram of protein. For carbohydrates, we targeted 210 grams per day, which is equal to 3.3 grams per kilogram. During fight camp, I like fighters to be on at least 3 grams per kilogram of carbohydrate intake, because that is going to support their training performance. Any lower than this, then you're really going to be sacrificing training performance. 3 grams or higher per kilogram, you can maintain a decent level of training performance. Obviously, it's not going to be the same as if you're on maintenance calories and able to have 5, 6, 7, 8 grams of carbohydrates per kilogram of your body weight, but it is the nature of weight making sports that you need to reduce body fat in order to make weight. So providing at least 3 grams per kilogram of carbohydrates is going to support or at least maintain his training performance level. And we provided him with 3.3. Now moving on to fats, we provided him with 67 gram per day target, which is equal to about 1.1 grams per kilogram. And I'm basing these grams per kilogram numbers on his weight class because throughout fight camp, his body weight is changing a lot per week. And so just basing these numbers on the weight class is more stable and easier to make comparisons based on the adjustments that I'll talk you through later on. So macronutrients during fight camp for this boxer: 2.2 grams per kilogram of protein, 3.3 grams per kilogram of carbohydrate, and 1.1 grams per kilogram of fat. And that fit nicely within his 2003, to be specific, calorie budget there. Fats could be a little bit lower than that potentially, but we want to make sure we're still feeding him a decent amount of fats because they are an essential nutrient. You do need to consume them. The benefits largely fall under the umbrella of optimal health, including things like hormonal function, things like testosterone production specifically, immune function, and also absorption of fat-soluble vitamins, so A, D, E, and K vitamins. A variety of functions, basically. So those are the starting macros. For the first 4 weeks, if you're watching the video, you'll see the chart of his weight loss up on the screen. His weight loss was slightly faster than we had targeted. In week 4, because we were ahead of schedule, I increased his calories by 200 exclusively from carbohydrates to provide a boost to his training performance. I knew that this would have a good payoff, and it was relatively low risk as we were ahead of schedule. So the first macro adjustment we made, if you're watching the video, it's the green dot on the chart. So we bumped his calories up from 2,000 to 2,200. We kept protein the same at 140 grams, 2.2 grams per kilogram. We increased the carbohydrates by 50 grams to 260 grams per day, which boosted that from 3.3 grams per kilogram to 4.1 grams per kilogram. And we kept fats the same at 67 grams or 1.1 grams per kilogram. In the next 2 weeks, the weight loss slowed down a little bit as a result of this increased calorie intake. It slowed to 0.3 kilograms and 0.2 kilograms per week, respectively, rather than the 0.7 kilograms we were aiming for. We knew this was a possibility given the increase in calories. It's largely individual. Sometimes you will increase someone's calories and they will, even though they're technically consuming more calories per day than they will still lose the same amount of weight because perhaps their energy throughout the day is a little bit better. Perhaps they can push the envelope a little bit more in training. However, this doesn't happen with everyone. Individual differences are largely varied. So because the weight loss had slowed a little bit at week 6, I decided to make a further adjustment to ensure that we were entering fight week at a safe weight. This was even more important than it usually would be due to the short 3 to 5 hour recovery window. So we didn't want to enter fight week any higher than we had initially targeted. So the second macro adjustment we made, which is the red dot for those watching the video, we dropped the calories back to 2,000. We kept protein the same as always at 140 grams. We kept the carbohydrates the same at 260 grams. And we dropped the fats this time to 45 grams of fats, which is equal to about 0.7 grams per kilogram of his body weight. So you will notice that the calories are the same as his starting macros. However, this time I decided to keep the carbs high heading into fight week, especially as it was a same day weigh-in. We weren't going to cut out carbs to make weight over fight week. And instead, I decided to make the calorie reduction from fats. So we dropped them from 67 grams, 1.1 gram per kilogram, down to 45 grams per day, 0.7 grams per kilogram. Just for reference, during fight camp, an appropriate fat intake is somewhere between 0.5 to 1 gram per kilogram. So 0.7 grams per kilogram is slap bang in the middle of that range. Another reason I kept the carbs high and decided to reduce the fats was not only that there was more room for reduction in the fats, because we were slightly above 1 gram per kilogram, but most importantly, I wanted this client to enter fight week. As with all my clients, I wanted them to enter fight week feeling well-fueled and confident. So I didn't want to risk dropping the carbs and then him seeing a subsequent dip in training performance. And I know that can affect your mindset, especially with all the stresses of preparing for the fight. The last thing you want to do is be heading into fight week feeling flat and depleted, and maybe a last sparring session doesn't go so well. It can all have a big knock-on impact. So I was aware of that, and that is why I kept the carbohydrates high. Now, as a result of this second macronutrient adjustment, this brought him perfectly back on track for his fight week target weight the following week. So we arrived at fight week exactly at our target weight. And after implementing our fight week plan, he woke up underweight and so was able to eat and drink prior to the weigh-in. But the details of fight week would make this podcast a little bit too long. Perhaps I will cover that another time. As I mentioned at the beginning, the Fighter Nutrition course, the FNC, is now available to the public. So check that out. There'll be a link in the show notes. Also, if you would like to work with me one-on-one in a more individualized and intensive manner, I do have a few spaces open on my one-to-one nutrition program. Here's how the application process works. You will fill out a pre-qualifying form on my website, jamesnicholnutrition.com/apply. And I will add that link to the show notes. You'll fill out that pre-qualifying form. I will send you 4 questions that will help me to understand your goals, your challenges, your reason for applying, and any upcoming fight details. If I think will be a good fit, I will record a video outlining my recommended plan of action for you and explaining how my nutrition coaching works, the structure, the pricing, all that good stuff. At this point, you can then ask any questions, and if we're both happy, we will get started. I will write up your bespoke nutrition plan. It will be fully individualized to you. We will then check in regularly to adjust and refine our plan to ensure the plan continues to work for you and that you stay on track towards your goals in the most flexible, enjoyable way possible. Like I said, you can go to jamesnicholnutrition.com/apply to register your interest in my one-to-one nutrition coaching. I'll include the link to that as well as the link to the Fighter Nutrition course in the show notes. If you enjoyed this type of content, please let me know. If you have any questions, feedback, or requests, you can message me on Instagram at jamesnicholnutrition. Thank you for listening, and catch you in the next one.